Today's reading, Living an Extraordinary Life. Whose thoughts are those? This is from Ernest Holmes' How to Use the Science of Mind. The accumulated experience of the whole race is lodged in the subconscious of everyone and operates through everyone until a passageway is cleared back through the mind to the spiritual presence which has never been affected by the race thought. While perfection is at the center of everything, the ages have built up a sense of disease and discord, which has been transmitted from one person to another. It is lodged in the general race belief. From this source, through unconscious suggestion, it passes into the life of the individual and more or less hypnotizes everyone from the cradle to the grave. Because everyone is an individual and cannot wait until the collective unconscious of the whole race is cleared up, everyone must break down the barriers which tie him to the race belief. In so doing, he will not only be healing himself of the mesmeric effect of race thought, he will also be contributing to the final redemption of the whole race. So if you can just now take those words into that inner sanctuary for a few moments. So how good it is to know the truth that right where we are part of this dynamic power of God. We are part of that peace and love and joy, because that is our internal truth of who we are, right here and right now, as we continuously work on that internal knowing of the truth. That way, then, as we know that eternal truth, we are part of that one mind, and that reverberates out into the world. That part of us that is knowing wholeness and love and beauty for every single person that we encounter on our spiritual path. And so I know that all of us are here by divine appointment, that right in this moment, there is divine order with our band, with Becky during the sermon today, with the children's church, with myself, with all the practitioners, and every single person that comes here to celebrate that one life of God is absolutely blessed on their path in this day. And I say, thank you, God. And together we say, and so it is. Amen. So I'm going to introduce Miss Becky. And I'm guessing that it's whose thoughts are those, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
You got it.
Woohoo! We love our Becky.
I am so honored and grateful for that. A lot of thanks.
Hello. There it is. Just sing, croon to it, it'll turn it on there. So, Lana, thank you. I don't like this podium. I feel like it's like a big block, and I'm kind of rocking behind here and behind here. Can you hear okay? All right. So, whose thoughts are those? Race consciousness. How many of you have a phrase that you heard growing up that reminds you of race consciousness? Like, no pain, no gain, right? Got to work hard to make a living. Any others out there that anybody can think of?
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
But yes, it does.
Okay, yes it does, it's paper, there we go. Money's the root of all evil.
It takes money to make money.
Takes money to make money. Any others? There's a lot of them, aren't there? These are just a few. So we all know well what race consciousness is. We've all grown up with it. And some of it we're cognizant of, and some of it we are not cognizant of. But before we go into exploring race consciousness a little further, what I want to do is highlight and take a look at who it is that we are. Let's start from there. Who it is that we are, where it is that we come from. And then from there we're going to take a look at what is race consciousness and how is it affecting that truth about who we are. And then from there, we're going to take a look at what are some of the teachings, what are some of the things that we can do with respect to science of mind to help us remember who we are, so that rather than live from a race-conscious belief that no longer serves us, we can go ahead and step in and live from that which is calling us, that heart call that we have. Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right, so let's take a look at who are we and where do we come from. Well, in science of mind, what we talk about is that there is a source to life, right? It has a lot of different names, but we only believe that there is that one source from which all life comes. And there's a lot of names. But you'll find in science of mind, when you look, in addition to the word God, in addition to what other names that people have for this, some people consider it an entity, some people consider it an energy, an allness, but it's got something that we can't define. So in science of mind, you'll find a lot of times we will look to, he'll call it divine mind, infinite source, oversoul, spirit, divine one, essence of life, life itself. And then you'll have people defining it, not so much by a name, but as an experience. Oh, it is just a light that shines when I look through the trees. It's just that brightness, that brilliance that makes my heart sing and want to open up. And so rather than define by a specific word, they're trying to define by an experience. But all in all, as we go through and we try to find this thing that is so big, that is so infinite at a scope, that really in that size is so vast that it's impersonal, isn't it? It's like, it's so big, it's like, what is this thing? So we bring it into and we draw it into our experiences so we get to know it more. But it is that vast thing that we know as love. That here in these teachings we teach as love. We talk about as peace. We talk about as creativity, as infinite possibilities. Those are the types of descriptions that we understand and we teach in this particular philosophy. And we come from that. That's our home. That's our place. We are that peace. We are that love. We are that wholeness. We are that beauty. We are that magnificence, that abundance, that's prosperity. That is who we are. In fact, one of the comments you'll often hear is, we are spiritual beings having a...
Human experience.
There you go. So we talk about that. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. So we're not negating what we're doing here, but the thing that we're remembering is there's more to who we are than just the humanity that we're expressing through. So we want to start with that. And that happens because of the source of our being. That's what we come from. That's what has brought us forth, right? It exists in and as and through every one of us. And we're learning what that means as we step into this experience of being human. And what happens when we step into being human, and what I love about this reading with Ernest Holmes, is he says, race-conscious thought, which is the accumulated experiences of humanity, which has a lot to do with why we believe what we believe and thus act the way we do. Those are accumulated thoughts that get impressed upon us. They're not ours, but they get impressed upon us, and at some point we choose to agree with them. They make their way in somehow, some way, and we may not even be cognizant of that agreement. But we make that acceptance, and it becomes a part of what we perceive, and then we act out of it. But he's very clear in saying, it is not you. It does not belong to us. It belongs to the consciousness of the human race, of which when we stepped into, we took part in. But it is not who we are. We are spiritual beings, thus capable of doing what? Stepping outside of the bounds of the known to create what it is that has yet to be. Now, how do I know this? How do I stand up here and know this? How is it not just a bunch of lips flapping? I want to take you back to when I was little, and I hope in doing so, it'll connect with each of you in some way when you were small. But I remember being tiny, little. And I remember looking at my hands. Did any of you remember looking at your hands as a kid or some part of your body and fascinated with it? It was doing these things. And I would look at it and I would move it. And I'm like, oh, wow. And I knew I was moving it. But the eye that I knew that was moving it wasn't the hand. The eye that I knew wasn't moving it was not this. The eye that was moving it had nothing to do with the body that it was resting in. I was more than that, and I knew that. And I was marveling at this thing that I was resting in, this body. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought, And then I went on, and then I had another experience where I got hurt. I got a cut on my hand. And I remember looking at my cut, and I was at that point just fascinated with my skin. Did you guys ever get just fascinated with parts of your body because they were just so interesting? And I remember looking, and I saw this scratch, and I'm like, I don't like that. It hurts. I don't want it. And I remember saying, I want it to be better. And then I let go of it. Didn't think about it. But the next day when I woke up, it was gone. There was just a tiny little indentation. And that was all. There was no scab, no scar, no cut. I didn't think anything of it. Again, I had another experience when I was little. This is pre 4 years old. I remember going out in the yard. I had 2 younger siblings, so my mother was taking care of them. And she had a family of 7 children to feed. So her ability to get outside and show me around the neighborhood was nil to none, So I remember walking around my yard, and I picked up plants. And do you know, I knew what plants were safe for me to eat and what plants were not. I knew strictly that this wasn't good, but I liked that. And I picked it up and I ate it. Didn't have any trouble. Never thought about it. Now I want to move you a couple, let me ask you, any of those, do you guys have any memories of experiences like that in your own life? Where you knew things. You knew things, and you had a sense of who you are in some capacity. And you were capable of doing things that now when you consider, you're like, really? I did that? I can do that? And then all of a sudden, a couple of years later in my life, about 5, 6, 7, somewhere in there, I had the experience where through visiting family members and overhearing people talk, and I was an extremely curious child, I would overhear people talk, and I would hear things like, the Rohero rear, the Brubaker thighs, the Triine knees, it was like every part of the body had a label of some family member or something. And I'm like, okay, and I'm listening to these, and I'm listening to what people are talking about, and I start going, do I have the Rohero rear? Do I have the Brubaker thighs? What about the Triine knees? And I began to question myself. And then I began to start looking at my body and looking at myself and comparing who I was next to the person sitting next to me. I looked at their hands. Is their skin like mine? I remember my grandma having really wrinkly skin, and that was weird. But it was their skin like mine. My mom's veins popped out. Will my veins pop out? I remember trying to make my veins pop out. Looking at different feet and trying to figure out whose feet I actually had. But what I found in that process is that going from this marveling to this, is this enough? Is my body somehow not what it needs to be? And I found in that process myself comparing, validating, negating, but all in all comparing, trying to figure out how I fit in this world that I was in. Then I had an experience around the same age where I got another cut. And I remember looking at it, again, not liking it. It hurt. I didn't want it. And I said, this doesn't feel very good. I don't want this. I want it to get better. And then I kind of went to let it go. But no sooner did I do that than this thought popped in. Well, you can't do that. You got to have a Band-Aid. You got to have medicine. And I'm like, what? And I can remember this little argument, this little confusion going on in my mind going, what? I did it before? Well, yeah, that's because you didn't know. You're not supposed to. I'm absolutely confounded, flustered, and I'm not sure what to do, that I finally get to a point that I'm like, well, maybe they're right. Maybe I don't know how to do this. Maybe I really do need a Band-Aid, and I need medicine. Because, again, I'm in a world, now I'm experiencing myself as a physical human being, getting to know what that is, and how that relates to my being a spiritual being in this human experience. And then I had another time where I was walking at the yard playing with a friend, and we were sitting there nibbling, and I picked up the plant to eat it, and she picked up one, but it was the wrong one. And I remember distinctly saying, "Stop, don't eat that one, here, have this." And then no sooner did that pop through my mind than up came, "How do you know that? You're not supposed to know that. You're too little, you haven't gone to school yet." Well, I knew it before, why don't I know it now? And there was a complete sense of doubt and questioning where I got to a point that I just said, well, maybe I don't know it. Maybe I don't know it. Maybe I gotta go to school for all this. Maybe this is what I have. And then very subtly in my life came the impress of race consciousness in all kinds of ways. Can you relate? Do you have those awarenesses of the times that you began to question that you knew what you knew? And then you're like, well, maybe I don't. So what happens when that happens in our lives? Because we sit apart, I don't know about you, but I got to a point that I forgot very clearly who I was. And it hasn't been until I've come here over the years of study and my own personal exploration that I've come to be willing to allow myself to see myself as that again. And when we're in that space, it's not that it belongs to us. Race consciousness is not ours. It's just something that gets practiced, and people present it and they don't even know why. It's like the lady, remember the story about the lady with the ham? Remember that? And they had the little tiny oven and she'd have to cut the ham off, and she couldn't figure out why her mother always cut the ham off. And the mother said, well, because my oven was too small. It had nothing to do with the need to cut the ham off for the sake of some tasty morsel that the ham would be if you cut it in half. But that's just something that we keep kind of following without really realizing. So what happens is conditions will arise that make us feel uncomfortable. In the process of mine, I was dealing with, in my journey, of course, I stepped away from my full-time employment to step into full-time employment as self-employed. Moving into a career, and I remember looking at my spouse saying, honey, in 2 years, it's just going to be awesome, flying high. And now in 2 years, what I've found is through the process that more and more of the race-conscious thoughts that I'd bought into that kept me stuck, boy, it kept showing up big time because it was time to let them go if this is really the direction I wanted to walk in. And so it hit me again. And it's like, why am I continuing to struggle with this issue of finances? What is this about? It's not my truth. And for a moment I could pause and say, well, you know, maybe you just need to hang all these teachings up. Maybe it's just a bunch of malarkey anyway. Maybe it's just bull. And then I paused and I thought, right, you know. You're here because you know. You're here, Becky, because you know. You know that there is something greater. You've felt it, you've experienced it, you've witnessed it, and you know it within yourself. And you know it's the truth of who you are. And I remember having this dialogue with myself. And I said, I'm at choice again. What do I want to believe in? What do I want to buy into? Because you know what? Buying into all this is real easy, right? It's real easy to pay attention to the temporal, to the physical, and give less credence to this idea that we are a spiritual being capable of creating something wonderful for ourselves in spite of, right? And not actually in spite of, because it's not even directed toward that, but regardless. And then in the process, as we step out and create this life that means something to us, then that's how he talked about we affect change in the human psyche, in the human consciousness, just by the simple changes we make because we choose to start recognizing who we are. We are awesome. Do you realize that? Take a moment. Stay with me. I am a spiritual being. Make that statement and feel it. I am a spiritual being. It may be weird. That's okay. I am a spiritual being having a human experience.
Spiritual being having a human experience.
How does that feel? Is it weird? You like it? Yeah? Not sure?
Yeah, I like it.
Okay. It's something to play with though, isn't it? For those of you who aren't comfortable, thank you for being willing to try it, to give yourself an opportunity. So how do we go from being caught up in the humanness, the race conscious ideas that we've bought in, to stepping into something greater. Well, for me, what helped me move through it was the practices that I developed over time as a result of being a part of this community. I learned how to meditate. You go, Mark and Mike have a wonderful meditation program on Wednesdays. There's meditation. You've got a yoga practice as a meditation. Laurel does yoga. I meditate a lot when I've done yoga with Laurel. People go for walks. They do drumming. They do different circles, things that will help people in some way connect. You might journal, find yourself reading, taking classes. That's a big one, taking classes. We have some wonderful classes here. And I guarantee you that they will open your eyes to your own understandings. Because here we don't say you got to believe what we believe here or else. That's not it. It's, let me present this concept. This was Ernest Holmes. He's like, let me teach you what I believe. And take it and play with it. If it doesn't make any sense to you, then it's not yours. If it does, then use it, work with it. Because we're all adding and we're all improving upon and increasing in the value of what it is that we're learning. We're just continuing to learn and grow and evolve. And that's what he was about in that process. So when you take a class, you're going to ask to get in touch with your own understandings, your own awarenesses, so that you be really clear, so that you can be the creator of the life that you were meant to be and you were meant to create. Here's the thing. They cost money. And there's another mindset. How many of you know the mindset, money and spirituality don't mix? Oh yeah, if you're spiritual and you go for money, there's a disconnect there somewhere. You should be able to be comfortable with nothing and groveling, right? And that's for whoever it is, I don't want to negate that. But the idea that that's the only path with respect to spirituality, to me, doesn't serve me. And yeah, my faith journey is about making sure that in the process of connecting, I am being served in the journey. So we do. You see, these classes run anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. They're 3 hours long each class. Whoever prepares for those classes has those 3 hours to do, plus the additional setup and preparation of materials. So you can look for an average of about 7 hours to prepare for those classes, 6 to 7 hours. And then you've got the room. Nice little room with lights, electricity, heat. You've got an individual who's responsible for making sure everything is set up and ready. And then we also have materials. So yeah, they cost money. Not because they're being ripped off. It's time to shift that mindset. Because out of respect for the energy and time put in and the value of what's being received, it's worth it. It is worth it. And so are each of us and whatever it is that we do in the lives that we have. We are worth what it is that we ask for and more. And if you're not in a space where you can take classes, I also want you to take, if you look and finances are difficult, talk to Reverend Cece or talk to the facilitator of whatever class you're interested in. Because we will work you. They worked with me. I was a mother with 2 kids trying to find a job that could help me stay at work at night and be at home with the kids, with my husband. So I did. I got support. So I taught the children. I became the youth director for youth ministry. I was involved in music. I did all kinds of things. Because in this community, we do not teach that is something for nothing. Because you see, if we think that you can get something for nothing, then what happens is you don't realize who you are. That you are a creator, and what you're stepping into is everything that you're creating. So that when you engage in something, you are going to ask to be an exchange of energy. Because that's just what happens. And in that exchange of energy, you get to remember that you do have worth, you do have value, you do matter, and you do have something of value to give. And that is why if you see a practitioner, they will speak to you about offering something. I've had it where I've had people give me flowers. But if they're dealing with money, then I have them give me a little something financially out of respect for that. Because they've got to move through that block that they're poor and they don't have enough. We're not going to feed that here. You are more. I am more. We are more. And we're worth claiming it. and we're worth living it. And if we're struggling in that, then you've got some licensed professional practitioners who are here, who have done their work. And that doesn't mean they don't have more work. They've got their own. We're all growing and evolving. But you can betcha they've done a lot of our own personal work to release mindsets and constructs that don't serve them. And they're here to support and see the truth in you. So I want to ask them to quickly stand up for me because I want you to see that they are here. We have Miracle Minute here on Sundays, and you're always welcome to connect with them. And we have Marty in the back, Jacoby. Please allow us to support you. Allow us through prayer to help you remember and know who you are. Because we do. Because we know that's what we are. So let's go ahead and move into prayer. And so we take this time just to breathe. Because we understand that not only is prayer about words, but it's about what those words allow us to do. And sometimes a word can't speak as well as just simply a sigh, a breath. And so in that breathing and in that sigh, we just allow ourselves to come into this moment, to give ourselves permission to remember who we are, even though it may be really kind of new and different from how we've been functioning. And as we do that, we pause a minute and we consider who it is and what it is that we come from. And we give ourselves permission to remember. Remember that which we come from that calls us here to even want to be present on a Sunday together. Because there's something in us that knows, that remembers, that calls to us to be more aware. So to that source that we know, to that source that has been love always, and that will always be love. To that source from which we spring, that is the very essence of our being. It is who we are, experiencing who we are. Not only as a spiritual being, but as a spiritual being having a human experience. And we allow the love that is that source from which we spring to just well up within our conscious awareness. The memory of tenderness, of joy, of prosperousness so great. A God of creativity, delight, beauty, peace. And I know that this source from which all creation comes, this source that is imbued and is indeed expressing in, through, and as its creation, and still more, is who we are. And even though we might have forgotten it, it still doesn't change the truth. And we know the truth. That we are one with this source And that as we look around in the world that we live in, even though things appear big, sometimes bigger than we wonder if we're capable of handling, there's still that call within us that says, remember. Remember. Maybe it's a call that says, don't settle. Don't settle. Maybe it's a call that says, relax, it's okay. Maybe it's a call that says, open the eyes, but it's something that we have because it is who we are, forever speaking, forever present. And we are guided by it. We live in it. And it is beautiful. And we are beautiful. And we just allow ourselves to rest and to be. Just to be. And so it is with love and with much gratitude that which is a source of life, but is in all things, is here, now, being. And so it is that I ask you to say with me, as we release and let go, and so it is. I am just a seed, a gentle thread in this glorious web of life.
We are all just drops within a stream flowing towards an ocean of light. We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. I am just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, then I will see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you. Of the infinite one, this is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one. This is my simple prayer. May I become a reflection of the infinite one.
So now it's time. Is it on? Okay. Now it's time for our joyous giving. Let's take a moment to think about all of our blessings to be grateful for that we have and are, and that we give from. Think about all you receive from the love that is all around you, and let it yourself feel the gratitude that rises up in you. As the offering basket passes through your hands, please bless the abundance of this whole community. And then together we affirm, gratefully I give.
Gratefully I give.
With an attitude of abundance. I know that as I give, so do I receive. And so it is. So opportunities and invitations. We'll be offering 2 accredited classes this fall. The Foundations, our first class, the one that is a prerequisite for the rest, is on Tuesday evenings, facilitated by Becky Victor, being offered at the very low cost of $100 or $10 per week. And also the Power of Your Word is going to be on Monday evenings, facilitated, well, not by me, it says by me, but it's not really me. I think that's Reverend Cece, so for which Foundations is a prerequisite for that one. Also remember the Holiday at Home Parade on Labor Day, September the 7th. Wear your t-shirt. More information about this and many more events is on the back of the insert under events and activities. And then please join us on September 19th to finish up the painting around here so we can get our new carpet installed. Yay. We need about 10 people for 4 hours or to knock the rest of it out. Please mark your calendars now and come help us out. I think you're going to sign up over there at the Welcome Center, is what they're doing there. And then see the events and activities section in the bulletin for details on social and green team meetings September the 6th. See what else is going on. There's a whole lot of things to read up here. Then there's the yard beautification team September 12th, our fall picnic September 20th, and then see the insert for info on our fall hiking camping weekend. And then we have, it is August birthdays. So join us in the social hall. The last Sunday of the month is today. And so I'm going to just read through these guys. Bob, oh God, I'm going to probably kill these names. Cruikshank, thank you. Laura Rupert, John Rupert, Alice Bush, Richard Bailey, Chris Noah Cooper, Linda Bogart, Caroline Bowman, Teresa Napke, Kayla Folker, Sarah Brust, Beth Sorstrom, I think I said that right. Schustrom, sorry. Doris Good, Terrace Garassi, I think that's right. Nick Gambino, Lynn Galiotto. God, these are a whole lot of names. And then, and then Zach Moore. He's 16 years old today. Yay! All right. So please stand for our closing affirmation. And after that, hallelujah. Hallelujah. All right, ready? The wholeness of the universe is seeking expression through me.
The wholeness of the universe is seeking expression through me.
Its nature is goodness.
Its nature is goodness.
Truth. Beauty. And wisdom. I allow it to shine through me today and always.
I allow it to shine through me today and always.
And so it is.
And so it is.
All right.